Arrest Mrs. Ashcroft. The tension in the drawing room is thick as you prepare to announce your conclusion. Everyone watches, their faces tense with anticipation. Your eyes land on Mrs. Ashcroft, the long-time housekeeper, who stands by the fireplace, her posture rigid. "Mrs. Ashcroft," you say firmly, your voice carrying the weight of accusation. "You were the closest to Lady Agatha. You knew her better than anyone in this house. You were trusted with her secrets, her daily routines, and everything that happened inside these walls. But that also means you knew how vulnerable she was." Mrs. Ashcroft blinks, stunned.
"No, Detective, I would never hurt Lady Agatha. I served this family for decades."
You step forward, unwilling to relent. You said things had been tense in the household lately. You knew something was going on with Lady Agatha, her fears, her unease, and you were in the perfect position to exploit that. You had access to the study, and you could have known about the will she was planning to change. Maybe you were afraid that with the new arrangements, your place in the household would be at risk. Her face grows pale as the room watches in disbelief.
"No, I've been loyal to this family my whole life. I wouldn't kill her. She was like a mother to me."
But the evidence seems damning. A green substance under Lady Agatha's nails, the tampered safe, and the tension that Mrs. Ashcroft herself mentioned all point to her knowing more than she's letting on. Perhaps you weren't planning it. You continue what you saw an opportunity. Maybe Lady Agatha threatened to cut you off, or maybe you felt she no longer trusted you. In a moment of desperation, you struck her with something heavy. You thought you could cover it up, but the pieces fell into place. Mrs. Ashcroft collapses into a chair, her eyes filling with tears.
"I didn't do it."
She whispers, her voice trembling.
"I swear, I didn't do it."
As Mrs. Ashcroft is taken away in handcuffs, the room remains silent, the shock still settling in. Edward stands by the window, his face solemn but unreadable. The case seems closed, yet a lingering doubt nags at the back of your mind. The weeks that follow are filled with uncertainty. Edward inherits Blackwood Manor and the family fortune without contest. Mrs. Ashcroft, despite her protest of innocence, is convicted of Lady Agatha's murder. Life at the manor seems to return to a strange normalcy, but there's something unsettling about how quickly it all happened. It isn't until later that you begin to question everything. Edward's anxious behavior during the investigation, his vague responses, and his noticeable relief when you turned your suspicion toward Mrs. Ashcroft. It all starts to add up in a different way. What if the green substance under Lady Agatha's nails came from the package Edward sent? What if Lady Agatha had planned to disinherit him, and he acted out of desperation? The will, the fortune, the control of Blackwood Manor, it all went to Edward, the one with the most to gain. Mrs. Ashcroft had no real motive, yet your investigation led to her downfall. You realize too late that you may have been wrong. Edward got away with murder, and the loyal housekeeper who served the Blackwood family for decades now bears the blame for a crime she didn't commit. The true killer walks free, his inheritance secure, while an innocent woman pays the price for his greed. The weight of your mistake haunts you, a bitter reminder that sometimes justice eludes even the best intentions.